Hello, everyone. So we are on day 4 of this painting that we're working on. And so some things that have come up since the last time we worked on it is, so obviously we've got this little kind of, it looks almost like a mess. But this is where our stand of birch trees are going to go. And I'm not as worried because as we start to build some birch trees in the foreground, their leaves are going to kind of cover up what looks like just a little bit of a mess. But one thing that kind of showed up that I wasn't expecting is that if you look right here in this piece, you got this kind of jagged piece right here. It almost looks like if you look here and here, and then there's some like rounded brush strokes. This looks almost like a cliff or a mountain. And so, and you can see that there's some like darker and lighter pieces in there from the way that I painted before. And so I kind of like this idea of there being a little mountain in the background. I didn't see that before until, I sat down and looked, and it's too jagged to be trees, but there's still, very much this rounded area in the background where there are trees. And so it looks like you would have a mountain with maybe a higher mountain in the back or some trees in the back. And so I'm going to start by getting some trees going in the background that are going to kind of be around this jagged piece of rock. And, we can color rocks any color. So if you were, down kind of in the Minnesota River Valley, down by Rochester and Winona, they're going to have, limestone bluffs. If you're around the Redwood Falls and Morton area in Minnesota, you would have some red granite outcroppings. If you were in the Black Hills, you're going to have more of a pinkish, also granite. The Rocky Mountains, a very light gray granite. However, I am partial to volcanic formations. I've seen 4 volcanoes erupt on 3 different continents, so I'm very partial to very black basaltic volcano-looking rocks, which would not necessarily fit with this landscape, but that's okay. We're just gonna give it a try. So I'm gonna pretend like there was a volcanic intrusion of basaltic rock on this prairie next to a river and some birch trees. Those pieces don't necessarily go together scientifically, but they're gonna go together on this painting because painting is what we imagine, not necessarily capturing what is. So yeah, I'm gonna, because the trees in this part are gonna be in the background, I'm gonna start with those, and then I'm gonna have to let them dry in order to get this black outcropping. I might be able to do that tonight, but just know that we might have to let these trees dry. These trees are going to be a very faint color of green, just because they're so far back when we look at it. These are way back in our landscape, and so these are going to be a very faint color of green. It is fall, so we're going to add a few of those reds and oranges and yellows in to show that the trees are changing. Actually, a more reasonable type of tree to fit in the mountain scheme would be maybe some oaky trees, but I really do like the theme trees or the fall color trees. A very similar landscape that I've seen to this in Duluth. They'll have these big black or dark brown rocks, and there'll be the deciduous trees around them. So we're just gonna roll with it and see if I can get some trees in the background around this, what looks like a rock formation. After I get the rock formation, I'll start getting some of I'm actually gonna make some horizon trees here, just to, again, to complete this horizon, and then get some, I'll probably get some color on the background. So we've got quite a few things that are going on tonight. Depending on our time, if we can make this all work, then we're going to try to get it all done in one night, and if not, then we'll just come back for the next video. So I'm doing a little bit of white with the thiocyanine blue and the yellow. So that creates this darker green is the thiocyanine blue, and then this is just a primary yellow. Those two together make this kind of very nice, dark, almost a Kelly green. And then just adding a little bit of white will give us that kind of that background color that we want for those trees. And I'm just kind of mixing all three of those together on my palette. And it looks like I got too much blue. It's a little bit more of a teal color than I would like. So I'm going to add quite a bit more yellow, quite a bit more white. I'm just getting some of this color. It's very light color going. And this color isn't exactly perfect, but it's still pretty blue, but kind of matches that color that we wanted in the background. And I am not going to add too much water to this because I do want to just get it on paper, and I'm just going around kind of where those trees would normally be, and just going around that. There's already these trees that are here. I'm just going to blend with that. And I'm trying to stay as far away from that cliff as possible because I really do like the shape of that. I don't want to cover up as much of that as I can. And we're still getting a little bit of yellow, so my trees are going to take up a little bit more space, and that's not too bad, and just making a nice little kind of a hill. And this actually, now that I'm, getting these trees on here, I actually see that this needs to come a little bit more to give that more of a natural slope to it. And like I said, we've already got these going on here. Now, since I got these trees here, one of the things that fall colors is to add the other colors. So I'm going to have yellow for sure. Like it's going to be fall yellow colors. So I'm just going to have some straight yellow, and then I'm going to have straight red. And I have the color of red I have is cadmium red. And then I'm also going to take little dollops of both of them, and I'm going to mix them 50-50 to give me some orange. And honestly, the orange will probably mix on its own. So I don't want to have too much of the green on there because it will turn the leaves brown, but that's also okay. So I'm going to start with just a little bit of the yellow, and I'm going to have just barely any yellow on my brush. I'm just going to kind of get some of those yellow leaves kind of going around this area where the leaves would be changing. And I'm not putting too much in here because it's so much easier to add than it is to take away. So I want to make sure that there's plenty of the green, but also plenty of the yellow. And then I've got quite a bit of green on my brush. Just adding as much of that yellow as will stick. If I wait a little bit, it can stick a little bit more, but I also want to have a little bit of blending because leaves aren't always necessarily perfect. And this is where it's going to get a little weird because I'm going to add some of that red. I'm not even cleaning off my brush. I'm just going to add that red. It's pretty bright as these, as they're changing, that gets pretty bright. And red is a very, very powerful color, so I'm gonna blend that in a little bit. Lots and lots of nice reds in there, and then I'm going to go back over with quite a bit of the yellow. There we go. Got some nice colors of trees, and actually in the video you can see this better than it looks almost like there's a trail cut into the path, and I actually kind of like that. That's because I like to hike. So there we go. We got some trees, and I did leave this open just to, and I do have enough room to start getting some of this black on there. So I'm going to be using Mars Black. And I'm going to do a couple of different shades of black, so, or different tones of black, and gray. So there's very dark black here, there's some lighter gray here, or this darker green would be where I do true black, and then there's some like gray areas, and then a very light gray. And so I'm going to start with that lighter gray, and I'm going to use a finer brush just to get this going. I'm going to start by mixing the black into the white to kind of get that lighter gray, and this is just essentially for shadowing. It has nothing to do with necessarily actually, now that I have my brush, I kind of like the softer brush. So this has nothing to do with necessarily I don't know what I was going to say there. I'm trying to mix color and talk at the same time. This is more to do with the shading, so like just getting some shading around here, and it's more about the texture of the rock than the. So again, I am using that softer brush stroke, and so I've got some nice kind of a medium gray, and now I'm going to take just a little bit of the white and mix it in with the black, so it's going to be definitely more of a charcoal gray. And I have been adding a little bit of water to this. It's a little bit dry, so I'm going to kind of go around here to get a little bit more of that shading. Again, trying to get some texture into this rock formation, whatever this rock is. It kind of looks like a kind of like those colors just the way they are. And then again, I'm just going right into the black with this. I still have a little bit of that gray on, and it's again just to get that texture. And then what I'm going to do is I'll go around the outsides of this. And my brush is getting pretty gross with how much I'm using this soft brush stroke. I'm just kind of getting a very loose amount of paint on here, and then I'll go back over this with more a finer tuned brush. That angled brush will give me a little bit better. So yeah, like right around there is where I want that defined thing. So I'm going to go back on here. So I have very dark black on my brush, and I'm just going to rinse that off a little and get some water on my brush, and I'm just going to kind of go around and blend again, just the idea of getting this rock formation looking more like a rock. There's quite a bit of water in this. That's fine. It'll dry. And then I am going to go kind of angled brush and kind of define the edges of those rocks a little bit better to make it look a little bit more like a jagged rock formation. So we've got kind of a nice little angle right here. And not all rock formations are perfectly this straight, so we definitely want to make sure that there's a little bit of imperfection there. So I'm going to kind of with my brush a little bit. I did add a little bit of water to make this paint flow on here a little bit nicer. And I am going to trim this just so I can draw a straight line. It's a little easier to pull the paint. So again, I'm just making this rock formation a little bit cleaner lines as it goes off into the trees. And then where it goes into the trees, that doesn't have to be a clean line because there's trees kind of in the foreground a little bit. Just making it look a little bit more natural. Again, trees are going to cover around down the bottom, and then I am going to kind of use this just to continue to get those colors just to be a little bit more, again, more rocky. Perfect. And so it doesn't look exactly like a rock, but it's going to. And then we've got, so over here, I said I was going to make a little horizon line for some trees, and these are going to be my birch trees. And I'm going to use the same method I used here, where I just have some kind of brushy tree, like horizon trees, grass, that type of thing. But with birch trees, they are going to be much more, there's going to be some gray to them. And so that's where I've got the black on there, but now I'm going to add a little bit more of that white and that gray to create kind of the same thing, but it's going to be like gray trees to accent that there are birch trees here. And then we'll add some more of that, some more of those, we'll add some more of those yellow trees to get the leaves going. All right, so I'm going to add in a little tree here that's going to collect these leaves, and then maybe have a branch up here. Not really sure what the tree is going to look like, but we're going to just see what we get out of this tree. So again, I'm going to add maybe a little bit more water than I normally would for the tree branch, just so that the brush kind of flows up against the canvas a little bit nicer. And got quite a bit of, I kind of wanted to have this go like the whole length, because I think it's just easier to have a full tree. And branches that are kind of coming out. in this tree, much thicker because this tree is going to be pretty big to get that many leaves. So we've got quite a bit of leaves going that we want. So we've got leaves here, we've got leaves here. That'll cover up a lot of leaves. Kind of this yellow and this blue. And then unfortunately, this particular tree is not going to reach those branches over there. So we might have to have a second tree. But we might be able to get a little bit closer. So we've got quite a bit of trees going on, or leaves, branches that will have leaves around them. This particular cluster, it needs almost like a little smaller tree that's going to have its own little branch. Another little tree, so that kind of gives us those branches are going to be covered in there. Got some more trees here. But this particular one, you know, when I think of trees that could kind of go up this direction, we can have a branch that just is reaching really far out there. So in order to have a tree that reaches this far out, it's probably going to need to be a bigger tree. So just continuing to expand those branches as they go and giving it balance on both sides. And again, making it a much, much wider tree to carry the weight of all of those branches. So you can see I kind of go between making things realistic and unrealistic, but also having some of that balance between those two. So I think this is a pretty decent group of trees that we've got going on. We don't need a whole lot more than that. I mean, we can do a few. And we can also do some little, you know, just show that this is a little tree, but there are trees here. So trees all around. We've got plenty of branches that kind of cover up some of these places where we had those leaves, and that looks very good. As far as any additional things, you know, these trees very much look like they're closer, but any more than that, we don't want to do too much, and I might change this color to a little bit of a gray, but we definitely want to have very clear trees like this, and this is kind of looks like it's more in the distance. I think that's all for today. The water piece actually looks very good. I don't want to mess with that too much. I was actually thinking that it kind of would be nice to have maybe you know, where there's this break in the trees to have kind of the river going, but like I said, I really like the river the way it is. The only thing I might add or change is a little bit of this color right here to get this darker river going. And we're not going to mess with that today. It's already been 20 minutes and that's good enough for today. And we'll keep working at this, keep chipping away at this.